Greetings. You are watching my presentation titled Concerning the Fed Bank. This is a question and answer session. But first, I would like for you to consider the words of the seventh President of the United States of America, Andrew Jackson. What he had said back then is yet pertinent today. But personally, I don't think the mindset of the American people is ready or conditioned to bring about some type of revolution, not one of guns and ammo, but more so ones of policy. We need a change of policy. What is an economy? An economy is a complex system of interdependent production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services by individuals, businesses, and governments within a specific region. In practice, what is actually happening within the U.S. economy? Martin Luther King said it best. He said that capitalism does not permit an even flow of economic resources. A small, privileged few are rich beyond conscience, and almost all others are doomed to be poor at some level. Since Martin Luther King used the term capitalism, capital is fundamentally money. So, what is the purpose of money? Henry Ford, in my opinion, described it best. The function of money is not to make money, but to move goods. Money is a conveyance that transfers the right of ownership of goods from person A to person B. Now, how does money enter an economy? Money enters an economy primarily through commercial banking. So, from whom does commercial banks get their money? Well, commercial banks get their money from a central bank called the Federal Reserve. Now, does the U.S. create dollar bills? The answer is no. The U.S. creates dollar bonds to borrow dollar bills from the central bank. What are dollar bonds? Dollar bonds are treasury securities. They are simply IOUs issued to the central bank or to any private investor, foreign or domestic. Dollar bonds make up the national debt. Now, this is an image of a fictitious bond, right? Written IOU, the Fed Bank, principal plus interest, signed by the government, which is we the people. Our system of government is one of representation. That's in theory and not in practice. Here's another illustration depicting how money enters the economy via government. The government issues or sells bonds to the Federal Reserve, and the Federal Reserve, the central bank, in return purchases the bonds with cash. From whom does the Federal Reserve get their money to make these loans to our government? Well, the Federal Reserve creates the dollar bills out of thin air. Now, this should trouble you. It troubles me. But it is what it is, right? Out of thin air. And it is loaned to the government, to we the people, at interest, right? So if we the people do not have any money, right, we do not create money. It is created by the central bank. Then, from where are we to find interest? Now, why do I ask that? Because the money supply is principal only, right? Which is the face value that is printed on the bill. What is the face value of this particular bill? Okay? So a fraction of the face value must serve as interest. And thus our money supply is contractionary by default. Now, here's a fictitious example of what I'm seeking to convey. Let's assume that each dollar in circulation had been borrowed at 3%. That means only 97 cents of each dollar in circulation serves the economy in this fictitious example. Okay? 3 cents is discounted back to the bank. Okay? In this fictitious example. So this is like, somebody coming to me and say, Mr. Cooper, I would like to borrow $5 from you. I need exactly $5. So I say, okay, I want 10% back interest. So I count $1, $2, $3, $4.50. And I tell the person that wants my money that I take my interest from the top. Okay? This is essentially our relationship with the central bank. Now, when the last installment shall be paid, the U.S. society, right, is 3 cents short of each dollar borrowed, resulting in a loan default, right? Subsequent refinancing, loss of collateral, more working hours, or 2 jobs or more if possible. Do you understand? Right? See, when you borrow money from a bank, you have to put up collateral. When you default, you refinance. Okay? With a lien on your collateral. And guess what? The bankers, they're not going to refinance how much you've been short. They want you to borrow more money, or they're going to keep your collateral. As a result, from borrowing money from the Fed Bank by issuing bonds, a national debt is created. Okay? This is a bar chart of the money supply and the national debt. As of March 22nd, 2026, the national debt is $39 trillion, almost doubling the money supply, right? More debt than money. Why does this happen? This happens because we borrow money at interest. Only the principle of the money supply exists, and thus, right, a fraction of the money supply must serve as interest. Therefore, our money supply is contractionary by default, and the interest amount is discounted or given back to the Fed Bank. So obviously, American citizenry will remain in debt in perpetuity. Do you understand? Now, I know this is above some people's head, but if you just think about it, it will make sense. Why is the money supply ballooning? And why is the national debt ballooning? It's because we, the people, borrow money at a cost. And that cost is called interest, which doesn't exist. Okay? There's no such thing as interest money. End game is danger, Will Robinson. Danger, danger. Now, let's consider the words of an enlightened individual, he that brought light into the world, Thomas Edison. If our nation can issue a dollar bond, it can issue a dollar bill. Huh? That's common sense. But the old saying is, common sense is not common. Anyone who has common sense in a non-common sense world is an enlightened individual. Right? It is a terrible situation when the government must go in debt and submit to ruinous interest charges. The dollar represents a $1 debt to the Federal Reserve System. The Fed Bank creates money out of thin air to buy government bonds. It has created out of nothing a debt which the American people are obliged to pay with interest. Why are we obliged to pay with interest? Because we got to pay taxes. We don't own any land. We need a place to stay. How did we lose our land? Huh? We just didn't fall out the sky. How did we lose our land? Where did we come from? Well, history will answer that. Since the Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air, does it have a profit incentive? The answer should be obvious, right? See, if I got the power to create money, then I can create my own profits. But then why be a banker in the first place? Why am I a banker? Why am I a banker? I'm a banker because I don't want to work. I don't want to labor. I don't want, excuse me, I don't want to get my hands dirty and bruised up. I want to wear suits. I want to fly around the world. I want to be cologned and perfumed down. I want to be surrounded by a bunch of women, or if you're into the other thing, I want to be surrounded by my lovers. I want to eat what I want to eat and drink what I want to drink. I want to take it easy, and I want to do this without getting my hands bruised, my knuckles bruised, without getting dirty, without shoveling doo-doo, without driving a truck. I want to be catered to. I want to be pampered. You get the picture? So I become a banker so I can do these things, right? The good book says, this only have I found, Ecclesiastes, I think it's 7:29. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 29 says, this only have I found, that God hath made man upright, but they went in search of many inventions. The term invention was is translated for the word hishabon. Hishabon, which means weapons, or devices, or thoughts, or plan, scheme, Ponzi scheme, right? Hishabon. So instead of standing upright, men would rather stand on all fours like a beast. Okay? The answer is no. Bankers do not have a profit incentive. They have a control incentive, right? See, I got you believing in talking serpents, talking jackasses, talking burning bushes, right? That's what I got you believing, right? I got you believing in Santa Claus and the Easter bunny laying eggs and, a bunny laying eggs. Go figure. So, I take your land from you. I swindle you. You've been bamboozled. You've been hoodwinked. You've been conned. See, The banker has a control the masses incentive. In other words, enslave the goyim, enslave the cattle, enslave these superstitious people, ride them like the jackasses that they are, right? It's the carrot on the stick trick, huh? You're gonna go where I lead you to because you're looking at that dollar bill, y'all, the carrot. The Fed's goal is to promote maximum employment and stable prices. Well, that's a funny way of saying something, right? What do they mean, maximum employment and stable prices? I'll tell you what they mean. What is maximum employment? Let's find out what maximum employment is. It's this. Maximum employment is what you see in those photos of these young people. Huh? Working at Macbeth, working at Murder King, working at White Casket. Okay? I am somebody. We can't survive on $8.25 an hour, is what this young person is saying in one of these photos. This is what they mean by maximum employment. They didn't say you was going to be rich. They said what the banker's goal is that you work, huh? And not them. See, a banker's not going to work at McDonald's, but you are. A banker's not going to drive a truck, but I am. A banker is not going even to fly an airplane, but he got somebody working for him. He's not going to fight a war, but you will. He ain't gonna wear combat boots and hold the AR-12 and go blow somebody's brains out that because of some, I don't know, some belief system. But you will, because you believe in money. Okay? You believe in money. Maximum employment is a condition whereby nearly everyone who desires a job can find one. Huh? It said desires a job can find one. Can find a job at Macbeth, Murder King, White Casket. Okay? So, what is the end game here? In practice, the U.S. system of banking is undoubtedly and overtly a pyramidal scheme of wage slavery. You got a job. And since the American people are in debt in perpetuity, this is also a system of peonage, debt slavery.